What a wicked web we adults would weave when at first we practice to deceive. Into the internet, two little girls roamed, became lost and disappeared not far from home. Scary stories just for fun, sadly believed by two little ones. Anissa was involved. That is not in doubt. You are here to decide whether Anissa suffered from a mental disease or disorder and lacked the substantial capacity to appreciate that her conduct was wrong or to conform her conduct to the requirements of the law. Anissa has already admitted that she and Morgan attempted to kill Peyton in order to protect herself and her family from immediate and inescapable harm from Slender Man.
When Morgan said to you that if we don't do this for Slender, our families and loved ones are going to be killed, do you honestly believe that?
Well, yeah, because he could be anywhere from 6 feet to 14 feet tall. He's, like I said, a tall guy who constantly wears a suit with a red tie. He doesn't have a face. His skin is white. And at his own will, he can exploit these tendrils from his back and strangle his victims. From what the creepypasta wiki said, he targets children most.
Okay.
So I was really scared, knowing that Slender could easily kill my whole family in 3 seconds.
When Morgan...
The two believed that the only way that they could prevent that was for them to become proxies for Slender Man. But to prove to Slender Man that they were worthy to become proxies, they had to kill someone close to them. After doing so, they had to leave behind the families that they both loved and cherished and risk their fate at the hands of Slender Man. How did Anissa become to believe this? Anissa and Morgan discovered Slender Man on the internet in November of 2013. They were both 11 years old at that time. On Creepypasta Wiki, they learned that Slender Man is one of many characters that prey on primarily children. Along with Slender Man, there's Jeff the Killer and Zalgo, to name a few. As they explored the wiki, they uncovered evidence that Jeff the Killer was real. One of the attractions of that Creepypasta wiki site is the intent on the part of the creator to make accounts of sightings of Slender Man and characters like Jeff the Killer appear authentic. There are transcripts of police interviews of people who have seen Slender Man. There are transcripts of psychiatrist interviews of people that have seen Slender Man. On the wiki, Anissa and Morgan found videotaped testimonials of older, sincere-looking adults recounting their sightings of Slender Man in the real world. Anissa and Morgan found articles from a newspaper clipping confirming that Jeff the Killer existed. So they knew that Slender Man existed, and they knew that he was near. So to protect themselves and their families, they had to act. And they would do so at Morgan's birthday party. They decided that Anissa would be the one to do the stabbing. When it was time to do so, though, that was something that Anissa struggled with. Anissa was handed that knife in the bathroom, in the woods, but she couldn't do it. Although she could not physically do that stabbing, Anissa believed that it was one of the things that needed to be done to protect her family from Slender Man. It had to be done in her mind. It needed to be done as a part of that delusional reality that she was living in at that time. So when Morgan agreed to do it, Anissa said, do it. After stabbing Peyton, Anissa and Morgan continued on with what they believed they had to do. And that was, they began walking to Nicolet National Forest. They believed that they would walk over 4,000 miles to get to Slender Man's mansion in that forest. They were aware that it would take 2.5 days of nonstop walking to get there.
So then, why do you have to go far away? What was this discussion about?
Supposedly, Morgan found out that Slender lives in the middle of... Slender has this big mansion that all the creepypastas supposedly live in. And it's supposedly in the middle of Nicolet National Park, or Forest, or whatever, up in Lamota, Wisconsin. So we were going to walk the whole way there. I realized it's really, really far.
You're going to hear talk about preparation. In preparation for their walk to Nicolet National Forest, they packed 2 water bottles, a few granola bars, boxes of matches, pictures of their families. They stopped at Walmart, one of the biggest businesses in the world, a business with cameras at every entrance, every exit, in the aisles, in the parking lots. A store that has an electronic department that routinely broadcasts TV stations. They then continued on their walk to Slender Mansion. Within hours of their walk to Slender Mansion, they completely ran out of water. So they stopped at Steinhoffel's furniture store, also a business with cameras inside the store and outside the store. It's also a business with an electronics department with TVs that routinely broadcast stations. In preparation for that long walk to Slender Mansion, they took along with them no change of clothing. They took along with them no extra pair of underwear. They took along with them no map. They brought along with them no compass. They brought along with them no GPS. They didn't take their phones. They had no money. They had no sleeping bag. They had no tents. They had no blankets. They didn't even have one sheet. How could Anissa have believed this needed to be done? Dr. Michael Caldwell, an expert in the field of child psychology, we contacted him right away because we wanted to know early on from someone, see her right after this happened, what caused this. He met with her multiple times beginning in July of 2014, so that's shortly after this occurred. He diagnosed her as schizotypal. I know you probably haven't heard that language before, but that is a mental disorder along the schizophrenia spectrum. I know a lot of people are familiar with the autism spectrum. A person can have varying degrees of characteristics of autism. Similar to the autism spectrum, schizophrenia has a spectrum, and the doctors will explain that to you. But for what that meant for Anissa is that she has a propensity to more readily accept non-reality or delusional-based beliefs. Morgan is also diagnosed with schizophrenia. Together, Anissa and Morgan came under the command and control of a delusional order that they both shared. A shared delusional disorder involves a strong adherence to non-reality-based thoughts or beliefs by 2 people who share a close relationship. The primary and the secondary person succumb to the exchange of the delusional beliefs as a result of that very close relationship. So Anissa and Morgan, two 11-year-olds, found one another, and then shortly after that, Anissa lost touch with reality and fell prey to that delusion.
Can we start from the beginning? So you guys, this was a birthday party, right? Okay, kind of tell me what happened.
So, there's this website called the Creepypasta Wiki.
Okay.
It's full of like horror stories that are meant to purposely scare you through like online literature and all that.
Okay.
And there's one of them called Slenderman. It's like really Slenderman. It's
Slender?
Slenderman.
Oh, Slender Man, just like a skinny guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he has these proxies or servants, as people call them.
Okay.
Masky and Teddy. And Morgan said, "Hey, Anissa, we should be proxies." And I was like, "Okay, how would we do that?" And that was around end of December, beginning of January.
Okay. And a proxy again, what is a proxy?
It's like a servant or like an apprentice.
Okay, and they're a servant of who?
The whichever they kind of don't have a choice. Slender's like the really big he's like head of it all, supposedly.
Okay, so Slender's the big guy,
Yeah.
the top guy, and the proxies are his puppets.
Yes, that's how people put them puppets.
Oh, okay. Well, I never even heard of this before. Okay. And it's called Creepypasta Wiki?
Yes, ma'am.
Like W-I-K-I?
Yes.
Okay.
You can find it online.
Sure.
Search something like I Love Jack, which is another killer.
Okay.
There are killers and proxies. Proxies are apprentices to killers, and killers are either by themselves or have proxies.
And the killers have the proxies do it for them?
No.
Okay. It's either killers or proxies?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that much about proxies and all that.
Okay.
I just know what the internet has told me.
Okay. So the internet has told you that Slender, is there just one?
Yes.
Or, okay. So Slender has a bunch of proxies, a bunch of puppets,
Yes.
and amongst these puppets there are also killers?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so proxies or puppets and killers are not the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Like on a triangle chart, Slender would be up here.
Okay.
There'd be like killers and then proxies.
Okay, so killers outrank the proxies.
Yeah.
Anissa developed these beliefs at a time in her life when she had no one to provide a reality check to those beliefs. She did not reach out to her parents. And so why didn't she reach out to her parents? In 2011, her mom and dad began to have struggles in their marriage. Her dad, Bill, will describe Anissa as walking on eggshells after he and her mom, Christy, began experiencing marital difficulties and divorced. Teachers at her school picked up on that. Prairie Elementary is where she attended at the time. They noticed symptoms of depression and they put her in counseling. At school, Anissa had very few friends. Teachers described her as finding it hard to make friends with other students. She struggled to fit in with her peers. She was described by one of her teachers as committing social suicide by some of her immature behaviors. After Prairie Elementary School, she was enrolled at Horny Middle School. For Anissa, what that meant is she was changing from one school district to another school district. So the peers that she attended Prairie Elementary School with and the few friends that she was able to make while she was in elementary school, they were not going to be going to Horning Middle School with her. During that first year at Horning Middle School, her father Bill's ex-wife died. He has two older kids, a daughter and a son, from that prior marriage. His ex-wife went through months of treatment, but ultimately succumbed to cancer. Her dad spent a significant amount of his time doing what any father would do under those circumstances, and that is helping his oldest kids cope with their mother's diagnosis and her eventual passing away. So during her first month at Horning Middle School, this is what things were like for Anissa. She spent her time on the bus ride to school sitting on the bus alone. She spent most of her lunches in the lunchroom eating in the cafeteria by herself. And she also found herself riding home alone on the bus. In October of 2013, on the bus ride to school, Morgan sat next to Anissa. She began to talk to Anissa. The chance encounter of those two 11-year-olds on a school bus under these circumstances set in motion the development of Anissa's delusional belief in Slender Man. Anissa latched on to Morgan, and together the both of them became unhinged. Ultimately, they hatched a plan. They hatched a plan to fulfill the wishes of the head of the world and of their delusional belief system, to protect their families. Again, the question that you are going to be tasked with answering is what caused this to happen. The evidence will show that at the time this occurred, Anissa's broken mind caused her to lose touch with reality. 3 experts evaluated Anissa, and I've already told you about Dr. Caldwell. But 2 other experts in the field of child psychology, experts that were appointed by the court, Dr. Melissa Westendorf and Dr. Gregory Van Rybrook, they were appointed by the court to do independent assessments of Anissa. And they both met with her and did their assessments in September of 2016. Each expert reached the same conclusion as Dr. Caldwell, that Anissa was under the command and control of a delusional disorder. You will not hear any expert come into this courtroom during this trial and offer any evidence that contradicts or disputes the 3 experts in this case. At the end of the presentation of the evidence in this case, what I'm going to ask you to do is find that at the time of this offense, Anissa suffered from a mental disease or disorder. I'm going to ask that you find that because of that mental disease or disorder, Anissa lacked a substantial capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness of her conduct or to conform her conduct to the law. Finally, I'm going to ask that you, by your decision, require the court to commit Anissa to the Department of Health and Human Services for placement in an appropriate institution. Thank you.